Welcome back. This is Chris, my brother in Christ, Stephen.
Welcome back.
Date today is May 7th, year of our Savior Jesus Christ, 2019. And the title of this video is going to be 100 Proofs the Earth is Not a Globe, Part 8. Part 8, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try to finish it. We're up to 77. All right, here we go. Number 77. Oh, quote, "Oh, but if the earth is a plane, we could go to the edge and tumble over," end quote. You hear that all the time. Is a very common assumption. This is a conclusion that is formed too hastily and facts overthrow it. The earth certainly is what man, by his observation, finds it to be. And what Mr. Proctor himself says, it seems to be flat, and we cannot cross the icy barrier which surrounds it. This is a complete answer to the objection, and of course, a proof that the earth is not a globe. The Antarctica Treaty in the 1950s, ladies and gentlemen, Antarctica is a ice wall, 100 to 200 feet, 300 feet surrounding us, 360 degrees, ladies and gentlemen. All right, number 78. Yes, but we can circumnavigate the south easily enough, is often said by those who don't know. The British ship Challenger recently completed the circuit of the southern region, indirectly to be sure, but she was 3 years about it and traversed nearly 69,000 miles, a stretch long enough to have taken her 6 times round on the globular hypothesis. This is a proof that the earth is not a globe. And this is what Stephen mentioned earlier. All right, number 79. The remark is common enough that we can see the circle of the earth if we cross the ocean, and that this proves the earth to be round. Now, if we tie a donkey to a stake on a level common, and he eats the grass all around him, it is only a circular disc that he has to do with, not a spherical mass. Since then, circular discs may be seen anywhere, as well from a balloon in the air as from the deck of a ship or from the standpoint of a donkey. It is a proof that the surface of the earth is a plane surface, and therefore a proof that the earth is not a globe. Folks, line of sight is a straight line. If you can see line of sight, it's a straight line. It doesn't go like this, like, oh, you can boomerang your vision around a corner, folks. All right, number 80. It is supposed, quote, in the regular course of the Newtonian theory that the earth is, in June, about 190 millions of miles away from its position in December. Now, since we can, in the middle north latitude, see the North Star on looking out of a window that faces it, and out of this very same corner of the very same pane of glass in the very same window, all year round, it is proof enough for any man in his senses that we have made no motion at all. It is a proof that the earth is not a globe, ladies and gentlemen. 81. Newtonian philosophers teach us that the moon goes round the earth from west to east, but observation, man's most certain mode of gaining knowledge, that's called the scientific method, shows us that the moon never ceases to move in the opposite direction from east to west. Since then, we know that nothing can possibly move in two opposite directions at the same time. It is a proof that the thing is a blunder, and in short, it is a proof that the earth is not a globe. How many sides are there to the moon, Stephen?
One.
One! No, because the earth is globular and is spinning a total opposite direction. We can only see one side and it's fully illuminated.
I mean, if you look at it, I think the Japanese did a backside of the moon, but it's all CGI.
Yeah,
It looks so
yeah.
fake.
Dark side of the moon. I used to believe that. Like, whoa, Yeah, the Transformers man on the dark side of the moon. Yeah, it must be true. Science is science fiction, right?
Same thing.
Same thing. Number 82. Astronomers tell us that the moon goes round the earth in about 28 days. Well, we see her making her journey, ladies and gentlemen, Isaiah 13:10. Her journey round every day if we make use of our eyes, and these are about the best things we have to use. The moon falls behind in her daily motion as compared with that of the sun to the extent of one revolution in the time specified, but that is not making a revolution. Failing to go as fast as other bodies go in one direction does not constitute a going round in the opposite one, as the astronomers would have us to believe. And since all this absurdity has been rendered necessary for no other purpose than to help other absurdities along, it is clear that the astronomers are on the wrong track. And it needs no long train of reasoning to show that we have found a proof that the earth is not a globe. Number 83. It has been shown that the meridians are necessarily straight lines, and that it is impossible to travel around the earth in a north or south direction, from which it follows that in the general acceptation of the word degree, the 360th part of a circle, meridians have no degrees, for no one knows anything of a meridian circle or semicircle, and to be thus divided, but astronomers speak of degrees of latitude in the same sense of those of longitude. This then is done by assuming that to be true which is not true. So zetetic philosophy, zetetic means searching or inquiring seeker, philosophy does not involve this necessity. This proves that the basis of this philosophy is a sound one, and in short is a proof that the earth is not a globe. Number 84. If we move away from an elevated object on or over a plain or a prairie, the height of the object will apparently diminish as we do so. Now, that which is sufficient to produce this effect on a small scale is sufficient on a large one, and traveling away from an elevated object, no matter how far, will cause the appearance in question. The lowering of the object are modern theoretical astronomers, however, in the case of the apparent lowering of the North Star as we travel southward, assert that it is evidence that the earth is globular. But as it is clear that an appearance which is fully accounted for on the basis of known facts cannot be permitted to figure as evidence in favor of that which is only a supposition, it follows that we rightfully order it to stand down and make way for a proof that the earth is not a globe. Number 85. There are rivers which flow east, west, north, and south. That is, rivers are flowing in all directions over the earth's surface and at the same time. Now, if the earth were a globe, some of these rivers would be flowing uphill and others down, taking it for a fact that there really is an up and a down in nature, whatever form she assumes. But since rivers do not flow uphill, and the globular theory requires that they should, it is proof that the earth is not a globe. Because remember, water seeks its own level. Number 86. If the earth were a globe, rolling and dashing through space at the rate of 100 miles in 5 seconds of time, the waters of seas and oceans could not by any known law be kept on its surface. The assertion that they could be retained under these circumstances being an outrage upon human understanding and credulity, But as the earth, that is, the habitable world of dry land, is found to be standing out of the water and in the water of the mighty deep, whose circumferential boundary is ice, we may, through the statement back into the teeth of those who make it and flaunt before their faces the flag of reason and common sense inscribed with a proof that the earth is not a globe. Number 87. The theory of a rotating and revolving earth demands that theory to keep the water on its surface, but as the theory which is given for this purpose is as much opposed to all human experience as the one which it is intended to uphold, it is an illustration of the miserable makeshifts to which astronomers are compelled to resort, and affords a proof that the earth is not a globe. Like you dip a tennis ball in water and then you throw it spinning, a spin ball, all that water is going to stay on the tennis ball, right? No, it's going to fly off, ladies and gentlemen. Number 88. If we could, after our minds had once been open to the light of truth, conceive of a globular body on the surface of which human beings could exist, the power, no matter by what name it is called, that would hold them on, would then necessarily have to be so constraining and cogent that they could not live. The waters of the oceans would have to be as a solid mass, for motion would be impossible. But we not only exist, but live and move, and the water of the ocean skips and dances like a thing of life and beauty. This is a proof that the earth is not a globe. Number 89. It is well known that the law regulating the apparent decrease in the size of objects as we leave them in the distance or as they leave us, it is very different with luminous bodies from what it is in the case of those which are non-luminous. Sail past the light of a small lamp in a rowboat on a dark night, and it would seem to be no smaller when a mile off than it was when close to it. Proctor says, in speaking of the sun, quote, his apparent size does not change, end quote, far off or near. And then he forgets the fact. Mr. Proctor tells us subsequently that if the traveler goes so far that the North Star appears on the horizon, quote, the sun should therefore look much larger, end quote, if the earth were a plane. Therefore, he argues, quote, the path followed cannot have been the straight course, end quote, but a curved one. Now, since it is nothing but common scientific trickery to bring forward as an objection to stand in the way of a plane earth, the non-appearance of a thing which has never been known to appear at all, it follows that unless that which appears to be trickery were an accident, it was only course open to the objector to trick. Mr. Proctor, in a letter to the English Mechanic for October 20th, 1871, boasts of having turned a recent convert to the Cetetic philosophy by telling him that his arguments were all very good, but that, quote, it seems as though, mark the language, the sun ought to look 9 times larger in the summer, end quote. And Mr. Proctor concludes thus, quote, he saw indeed that in his faith in parallax, he had written himself down as an ass, end quote. Well then, trickery or no trickery on the part of the objector, the objection is a counterfeit, a fraud, no valid objection at all, and it follows that the system which does not purge itself of these things is a rotten system, and the system which advocates, with Mr. Proctor at their head, a weapon to use, the zetetic philosophy of parallax, is destined to live. This is a proof that the earth is not a globe. Number 90. Is water level or is it not? End quote. Was a question once asked of an astronomer. Practically yes, theoretically no, was the reply. Now, when theory does not harmonize with practice, the best thing to do is to drop the theory. Wow, what a novel idea. It is getting too late now to say, quote, so much the worse for the facts, end quote. To drop the theory which supposes a curved surface to standing water is to acknowledge the facts which form the basis of zetetic philosophy, and since this will have to be done sooner or later, it is proof that the earth is not a globe. 91. By actual observation, says Schodler in his book of Nature, we know that the other heavenly bodies are spherical, hence we unhesitatingly assert that the earth is so also. End quote. This is a fair sample of all astronomical reasoning. When a thing is classed as amongst other things, the likeness between them must first be proven. It does not take a Schrödinger to tell us that the heavenly bodies are spherical, but the greatest astronomer of the age will not now dare to tell us that the earth is and attempt to prove it. Now, since no likeness has ever been proven to exist between the earth and the heavenly bodies, the classification of the earth with the heavenly bodies is premature, unscientific, and false. This is a proof that the earth is not a globe, kind of like the pool table, ladies and gentlemen. The billiard balls, they're spherical, so therefore the billiard table should be a sphere as well. 92. Quote, there is no inconsistency in supposing that the earth does not move round the sun, end quote, says the Astronomer Royal of England. Certainly not when the theoretical astronomy is all supposition together. The inconsistency is in teaching the world that the thing supposed is a fact. Since then, the motion of the earth is supposition only, since indeed it is necessary to suppose it at all, it is plain that it is a fiction and not a fact. And since mobility and sphericity stand or fall together, we have before us a proof that the earth is not a globe. 93. We have seen that astronomers, to give us a level surface on which to live, have cut off one half of the globe in a certain picture in their books. Now astronomers, having done this, one half of the substance of their spherical theory is given up. Since then, the theory must stand or fall on its entirety. It has really fallen when the half is gone. Nothing remains then but a plain earth, which is, of course, a proof that the earth is not a globe. 94. In Cornell's geography, there is, quote, a illustrated proof of the form of the earth, end quote. A curved line on which is represented a ship in 4 positions as she sails away from the observer is an arc of 72 degrees, or 1/5 of the supposed circumference of the globe, about 5,000 miles. 10 such ships as those which are given in the picture would reach the full length of the ark, making 500 miles as the length of the ship. The man in the picture who is watching the ship as she sails away is about 200 miles high, and the tower from which he takes an elevated view at least 600 miles high. These are the proportions then of men, towers, arid ships, which are necessary in order to see a ship in her different positions as she rounds the curve of the great hill of water over which she is supposed to be sailing. For it must be remembered that this is supposed proof depends upon lines and angles of vision which, in and large, would still retain their characteristics. Now, since ships are not built 500 miles long with mass in proportion and men are not quite 200 miles high, it is not what it is said to be, a proof of rotundity, but either an ignorant farce or a cruel piece of deception. In short, it is a proof that the earth is not a globe. 95, in Cornell's Intermediate Geography, 1881, page 12, is in, quote, illustration of the natural divisions of land and water, end quote. This illustration is so nicely drawn that it affords at once a striking proof that the earth is a plane. It is true to nature and bears the stamp of no astronomer, artist, no CGI. It is a pictorial proof that the earth is not a globe. 96. If we refer to the diagram in Cornell's Geography, page 4, and notice the ship in its position the most remote from the observer, we shall find that though it is about 4,000 miles away, it is the same size as the ship that is nearer to him, a distance about 700 miles. This is an illustration of the way in which astronomers ignore the laws of perspective. This course is necessary, or they would be compelled to lay bare the fallacy of their dogmas. In short, there is in this matter a proof that the earth is not a globe. 97. Mr. Hind, the English astronomer, says, quote, the simplicity with which the seasons are explained by the revolution of the earth in her orbit and the obliquity of the ecliptic may certainly be adduced as a strong presumptive proof of the correctness, end quote, of the Newtonian theory. Quote, for on no other rational suppositions with respect to the relations of the earth and sun can these and other as well known phenomena be accounted for, end quote. But as true philosophy has no suppositions at all and has nothing to do with suppositions, and the phenomena spoken of are thoroughly explained by the facts, the presumptive proof falls to the ground covered with the ridicule, the dust of Mr. Hind's rational suppositions. We are standing before a proof that the earth is not a globe. 98. Mr. Hind speaks of the astronomer watching a star as it is carried across the telescope by the diurnal revolution of the earth. Now, this is nothing but downright absurdity. No motion of the earth could possibly carry a star across a telescope or anything else. If the star is carried across anything at all, it is the star that moves, not the thing across which it is carried. Besides, the idea that the earth, if it were a globe, could possibly move in an orbit of nearly 600 millions of miles with such exactitude that the crosshairs in a telescope fixed on its surface would appear to glide gently over a star millions of miles away is simply monstrous. Whereas with a fixed telescope, it matters not the distance of the stars, though we suppose them to be as far off as the astronomer supposes them to be. For as Mr. Proctor himself says, quote, the further away they are, the less they will seem to shift. End quote. Why, in the name of common sense, should observers have to fix their telescopes on solid stone bases so that they should not move a hair's breadth? If the earth on which they fix then move at a rate of 19 miles in a second. Indeed, to believe that Mr. Proctor's math of 6,000 million tons is rolling, surging, flying, darting on through space forever with a velocity compared with that of a shot from a cannon is a very slow coach. With such unerring accuracy that a telescope fixed on granite pillars in an observatory will not enable a lynx-eyed astronomer to detect a variation in its onward motion on the thousandth part of a hair's breadth is to conceive a miracle compared with all the miracles on record put together would sink in its utter insignificance. Captain R.J. Morrison, the late compiler of Zadkiel's Almanac, says, we declare that the motion is all mere bosh, and that the arguments which uphold it, when examined with an eye that seeks truth, only mere nonsense and child absurdity. Since then, these absurd theories are of no use to men in their senses, and since there is no necessity for anything of the kind in zetetic philosophy, it is a strong presumptive proof, as Mr. Hine would say, that the zetetic philosophy is true, and therefore that Earth is not a globe. We made it to 98, ladies and gentlemen. We didn't make it to 100, but we'll pick it up. But come to the living Word of God, which is truth. God bless you. Bye.